the Ukrainians and the Russians, they have their own argumentation why they want to continue the fight. Both parties want to continue the fight. So he thinks that we need neutral mediators, like big countries need to be neutral mediators who are putting pressure on both parties, restoring communication channels, and in the same time putting pressure on both parties, but not because of the continuation of the war, but because of closing it. And what we see that there is direct communication between US and Russia, which is a very good thing. We were hoping for this for like 3 years, and I think President Putin is dealing with President Trump directly, and President Trump still wants to close the conflict, which is a good sign from our perspective. Obviously, we don't want the circle of escalation.
What evidence has Hungary seen that Putin is interested in peace negotiations? As you know, Ukraine quite early on agreed to President Trump's ceasefire. Russia still has not agreed and has repeatedly refused, and one might say is escalating the attacks rather than reducing them.
This is why I'm saying that from a diplomatic point of view, what is happening and what is done by the Trump administration, it's a very complex initiative, and I think they are working quite well. Communication is important. There were some direct talks also between the Ukrainians and the Russians, but you know, I don't want to go into the games. What we see is that the Ukrainians and the Russians, so both parties, they want to continue the fight. It doesn't matter how they communicate. They think, both countries, that the time is on their side and they will get a better result if they continue the fight. So this is why it's very important that we have a different approach from the United States administration, the new administration, and they want to close the conflict, which is a very sad story because Europe is already losing on this conflict very much.
Here at Aspen at the Security Forum, as you're quite aware, most of the European officials look at Russia as a threat, not just to Ukraine's security, but to their own security. And they look not just to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but they look to Russia's invasion of Georgia in 2008, the Russian military presence in Moldova now, and other attempts to interfere. Does Hungary see Russia as a threat to European security?
So look, we are talking about for like 10 years, way before the Ukraine conflict started, that Europe should be increase military spending because it would increase European strategic autonomy, if we want to use the French term. So we support that idea, and so far we did our part. We have 2% GDP spending, and we agreed on the higher numbers as well. But the real debate in Europe right now is how to protect ourselves. Should we be protected through Ukraine, or should we rearm ourselves? And the Hungarian position is very clear on that. We shouldn't be protecting ourselves through Ukraine because that would lead us into a strategic confrontation with Russia, which shouldn't be the case. But the European armies should be stronger to defend ourselves if it's needed.
Do you believe, as many have said, that Ukraine is to some degree fighting for Europe's security on its own, right?
No, I disagree with that.
Tell me why.
That's why the Hungarian position is quite unique. They are fighting for themselves, and they have the right to do so. But it's not about our security. We never asked them to fight in the name of us. We don't want to go into a confrontation with Russia. We need to be able to protect ourselves, but the Ukrainians are doing their thing. It's not the European thing. This is what the debate is about inside the European Union.
Do you accept that Ukraine is doing their thing, as it were, because they were invaded by Russia? In other words, Ukraine is fighting for its own sovereignty.
But it's their decision. You know, we will see what the outcome of that strategy will be. They lost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Millions left the country, and they lost their financial independence. So we will see where we are heading. This is why my Prime Minister tried to convince President Zelensky that the time is not on his side, so he should also go for the deal.
Do you believe that Russia is a threat to, or might invade or in other way attack NATO members?
I think it's not realistic now.
Tell me why. Or in the future?
Because NATO is far stronger than Russia. And if we are able to increase our spending, we Europeans, we will be far stronger as well. Why would they do that?
Deterrence, in effect.
Yes.
Okay. EU membership, as I know, your own position and Hungary's position is that Ukraine should not be a candidate for EU membership today. Tell us why.
They can be a candidate, so they have the right to apply, but European countries should make decisions. It's a huge amount of money. Europeans, they don't have this money. European competitiveness is very much down, and if we let Ukraine in the European Union without closing the conflict and without reaching an agreement between the West and Russia, then we import the conflict. And then the war will be inevitable, this is something what we Hungarians don't want to see coming.
After the war, though, Hungary would support the possibility of Ukrainian membership?
You know, now it's not realistic. Now it's not the time to talk about it. We have to be, I know it's not a convenient situation for many, because they were promising NATO membership. So Western countries were promising NATO membership and EU membership to Ukrainians. And now it turned out that they cannot be NATO members. Obviously, from a realistic point of view, that was always the case. And the same with the EU membership. So now what we should do is to be realistic. It cannot happen right now, because it would have a devastating consequence on the future of Europe.
What do you say to Ukrainians who might say to Hungary, that Hungary benefited from EU membership, particularly in the post-Soviet Union era? It allowed it to prosper economically and to grow stronger. Why would it be right for Hungary but not for Ukraine?
So I understand why they want to join. I'm not questioning their argumentation on that basis. But what I'm saying is that when Hungary and all other Eastern European countries joined, first they became NATO members. So there was a security umbrella, and there was a long discussion and negotiation how it will not harm Western European countries' interest and how they find a so-called modus vivendi. And now no one is talking about that, because everybody is saying that, you know, it should be a geopolitical decision, not a merit-based process. They use the term merit-based, but it's like it's fake. Everybody knows that, and we have serious problems right now in Ukraine. There was a Hungarian man, a Hungarian Ukrainian dual citizen who was dying during a violent conscription just recently, and you know, if you are in war, you cannot integrate into this market and into this big economic structure without destroying the others, which shouldn't be the case. So Europe should be taking responsibility for itself.
Mr. Orbán, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.